Hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you for joining us for our Tuesday update recorded on the 24th of June. Let's get into the forecast. We've got a whole lot of wet weather on the way with a burst of wind as well. This is it over here in Australia at the moment, bringing a burst of thunderstorms and heavy rain across parts of Victoria, New South Wales and the ACT, and that is all moving off towards New Zealand with also a colder injection behind it that's coming into South Australia. All of that is moving towards New Zealand, although it will sort of morph into something a little different by the time it gets here. But either way, we've got some weather coming in from the west, and before it does, we've got high pressure over the country at the moment. That's why we've got lighter winds today, and we had that cold start this morning. But that is about to change as the windy weather between the high that's over us and the incoming low pressure moves towards us. So this map kind of explains it a little better. Here is the high over the top of us this evening and the windy weather out of the Tasman Sea, and then lower pressure into the southeast corner of Australia where that cold front is moving through, or cold fronts. Big southerly coming into Australia. Now when that reaches New Zealand, it's going to change shape a wee bit, but we do have colder weather coming back in again after a brief warm up, thanks to these subtropical nor'westers. So they'll start to develop in the lower South Island going through tonight. You might have a northerly flow or a northeasterly even for some parts further northwards up around Canterbury. Light winds remain though around the top part of the North Island and the eastern side of the North Island. So look at the frost maps, they're melting away. Tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, you can see some frost risk through the interior of both the islands, mostly higher elevation. And then you jump through to Thursday morning, basically no frost. The little blue dots you see there, that's only a possible frost and very likely to be up in the mountains. So it warms up. I mean, it's not going to be warm, but it's not going to be cold enough to be seeing a frost or even a lot of snow to begin with. But we might be seeing some snowy weather coming in for a time after the fronts pass through. So let's break it down. Here is noon Wednesday. What is the biggest change? The windier weather. So we'll be noticing stronger northwesterly winds. For the most part, they're northwesterlies. Strongest around the usual places like Cook Strait and Wellington and through the Southern Alps, but also down around Southland as well as that squash zone kind of pushes up the country. Lightest winds will be at the top of New Zealand. Subtropical airflows coming through for a large portion of New Zealand. And even if you don't have the subtropical wind, you've got a nor'wester that's coming from out of Australia. So either way, Wednesday looks milder than average, both by day and by night, around New Zealand. Now that doesn't mean it feels warm for everyone, but it's warmer than it usually is for this time of the year. And the rain starts on the west coast, only a couple of showers around the North Island. On Thursday, the cold front moves up the country. It moves into the Nelson-Tasman region. Worth keeping an eye on that in the Nelson-Tasman area. Some of the rainfall total numbers are quite high at the moment, so drill down deeper. Go to ruralweather.co.nz or download the free Weather Watch app, and under trends, it shows you kind of the rainfall figures and rainfall spikes coming through over the next few days. But pretty windy weather from about Banks Peninsula all the way up to East Cape. Windy nor'westers, gale in exposed areas, possibly even severe gale. That's over 90 kilometres an hour. And rain or showers around the North Island. Remember, high pressure is just here, quite strong, 1041. That's pushing back towards that front, part of the reason why it's windy. That also limits how much wet weather falls around the top of New Zealand. And you see the polar blast here coming up well past Sydney, almost up to Brisbane, which is just a little further up the road. So they've got frosty weather going up to Queensland for a time once more. So by Friday, in comes the Tasman Sea low. This is it here. The areas in green and yellow are heavy falls, which may also have thunderstorms, as we've just seen in Australia today. There's a bit of thunder activity as you transition from the northerly winds that are subtropical to the colder southerlies being dredged up by that low. So there might be some thunderstorms. If you don't have that, there's a chance of some heavy downpours, maybe a little bit broken up, hit and miss, as you can see here. It's not everyone getting it all at once. And the top of the South Island still exposed to the heavy downpours. Rain or showers coming down into Canterbury as an easterly or a northeasterly, so that won't be very warm. I know you're a bit sick of the rain around Canterbury at the moment. And a little bit of high pressure comes into Fiordland and Southland as we go through Friday. And that marks actually the beginning of the weekend, because there is high pressure out over Australia expanding out here to the south, but it's far enough away so that we've still got that southerly airflow coming through. So it'll be a cold day on Saturday in Canterbury with the cloud and the wet weather. snow falling on the hills and ranges around you. A bit of a wintry day around Canterbury on Saturday. It's not 100% locked in where the centre of that low will be. It could move around anywhere. There's also low pressure around the North Island, so a couple of centres to it. That means tomorrow's maps might consolidate it into one place or separate them out a little more. That's always the thing that kind of happens when they're a bit messy like this. Around the North Island, westerlies blowing through, still northwest around northern Hawke's Bay up to about Gisborne, and you're seeing that southwesterly change moving through as we go through the day. And so by Sunday, high pressure drifting off the coast of New South Wales. Between that high and the low near the Chatham Islands, this is a southwesterly airflow blowing across the country. So the usual showers all along the western side of New Zealand, especially into the North Island. And in the South Island, sunny, dry weather kicks into the east. That will also occur around the eastern North Island. The polar line, so south of that blue line, that is the polar air that goes around Antarctica. It is just brushing the lower part of New Zealand, and by Monday it surges back up again to about the halfway mark due to this very big high south of Australia. So the anticyclonic wind going around that drags that colder air down around the Southern Ocean and drags it up over the South Island. So you'll be cold again. South Island's been colder than usual in recent weeks. The top of New Zealand's been warmer than usual in recent weeks. And if you're in the middle part of the country, temperatures are pretty much where they should be. It's not too extremely mild or extremely cold. You're that porridge that's just right in the middle. So that's how it's looking. Look at the sunshine hours. This is quite an interesting map. I write a column for Farmers Weekly each week, and this week we were having a meeting, and the conversation came up about how it's been brighter in a number of regions, not for everyone. So this map from the New Zealand government shows these areas here in the sort of the red-pink shading, over 125% compared to usual as far as bright sunshine is concerned, which means when it's been cloudy, a lot of that cloud is burnt off fast, or it's been high cloud, or there have been breaks in the showers. Cloudy though, down here where you see the grey shading at the bottom of the scale here. So sort of you're talking about below 85% of the normal amount of bright sunshine you'd get. So coastal Otago, all of Canterbury, Marlborough and parts of Wairarapa, you're in the cloudier, gloomier category. Southland, or at least parts of Southland, Fiordland of all places, parts of the west coast, and then a large portion of the North Island here, Auckland, Coromandel, Bay of Plenty, East Cape, a bit of Hawke's Bay, coming further down into Manawatu, Taranaki, Wanganui. All of those areas are seeing, and even some parts of Waikato here, I guess, also seeing these longer sunshine hours. So it hasn't been as gloomy this winter as it could be. Now, NIWA admits they don't have a lot of weather stations to necessarily verify all of this. Where you see a black dot is where they've got one. But that's still an interesting kind of snapshot of the country this winter, which has been, as I said yesterday, fairly ho-hum. So far, anyway. We've still got a couple more months to go. That's all from me for today. See you again tomorrow, Wednesday, as we take a closer look at the severe weather risks, really, coming in for the next few days later this week. Have a good rest of your Tuesday.